A viral blog post claiming Pfizer's COVID vaccine caused miscarriages in 44% of pregnant women during its clinical trial has been debunked. That blog post, written by Dr. Naomi Wolf, not a medical doctor, made the rounds on social media last week. The website later issued a correction saying the actual led to a faulty percentage.
Washington editor at the Spectator, Athey, dug into the Pfizer data. She joins us now to discuss what she found and to weigh in on Wolf's false claims. Amber, welcome back to Rising.
Thanks for having me.
So help us understand, how did Naomi Wolf get these numbers out of this data that you've now reviewed?
Yeah, there were a lot of mistakes that were made, and frankly, I was disturbed when I first read her blog post because I was someone who was wary of getting the vaccine because of potential effects on fertility or pregnancies. And so I decided that it was important to dig into the data and really figure out if this was true. The first issue that I found was that she had actually double counted the number of miscarriages. So in the data table, there are two listings of the miscarriages, and that's because they list all adverse effects first, and then there's a second category that lists serious adverse effects. And so obviously a miscarriage would count under the adverse effects and the serious adverse effects tables. So she counted, I believe it was something like 22 miscarriages, but it was actually 11. And then she also did not get the correct denominator. So in the sample, she claims that there are 50 pregnant women, and she said there were 22 miscarriages, which, as we've already established, was wrong, and that was out of 50 pregnant women. However, there were actually at least 66 pregnant women in the sample, and the reason you can tell she miscounted is because each subject in the table has a unique subject number, and the subject numbers on the miscarriages don't all match up to the subject numbers in the table of 50 women, so we know that there have to be more.
Right, and I want to make sure that our viewers are clear. You are someone who has not been for vaccine mandates. You've absolutely wanted to take your time to explore whether they're fully. So you are not someone trying to shove vaccines on everyone. So I think you have a lot of credibility to address this and point out that people who are critical of vaccines or vaccine mandates have to have the right numbers to discuss these things. And I think, if you then average out the numbers that you raised there, we're now getting anyway into a sort of a figure that is broadly close to whatever the miscarriage rate in the general population, regardless of vaccines, is. Is that correct?
That's right. You end up getting somewhere between 16 and 18%. And for known pregnancies, the national average for miscarriages is about 10 to 15%. And you might say, whoa, that's still higher. But we have to remember that we're looking at a sample of 66 women. That is such a small sample that the margin of error is unbelievably high. So this would be well within the normal average for miscarriages. And actually, I don't think the data is very useful at all, because we would never use a sample of 66 people in pretty much any other statistical analysis, right? It's just way too low to really make any conclusions. And you're dead on. I'm skeptical of the vaccines. I only got one because I was mandated to by my old employer. But when I was looking at this data, I know a lot of really close friends and family members who did get the vaccine or got 2 doses of Pfizer or Moderna or what have you. And I just want to make sure that they're not freaking out unnecessarily because they think that if they get pregnant, they're going to miscarry their baby. So I think it's important to make sure that we're approaching any skepticism of the COVID vaccines with facts and accurate data, and make sure that we're telling people the truth. I'm not on the side of Pfizer. I'm not on the side of Naomi Wolf or anybody else. I just want to make sure that people have the truth, that they have accurate information so that they can make correct decisions and informed decisions about their own health.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of people were concerned about this. I had a couple of friends who were pregnant during COVID, one of whom is a gynecologist, and the group chat was rife with back and forth about what exactly the clinical data was, and they were lucky to have someone, who was a doctor, an actual gynecologist to inform them about what the studies were showing at the time. But it is helpful, I think, to have robust conversations about these things and not just bury them under the rug or just say, let's not believe Naomi Wolf, she's a crackpot. Actually going through the numbers and having that explanation from someone like you, I think, is really reassuring to folks.
Yeah, in a statement, go ahead.
I never want to discount somebody. People make mistakes, and I like to make sure that I'm checking the actual information and not just dismissing something out of hand because of the person, because I do think this is such an important issue, and there will be years that will pass before we know for sure the true effects of the vaccines on people. So this is just one study out of many, and I certainly would encourage people to keep digging into the data and figuring out exactly what these adverse effects are and how prevalent they are in people who have been vaccinated.
In a statement to the Associated Press, Pfizer said the company does not comment on social media claims, but noted that its phase 3 clinical study included more than 44,000 people. Half were women. Miscarriages were not reported as a vaccine side effect. So, right, of course, it's like you said, theoretically could be something you still see down the line. You don't know exactly what all the potential side effects would be. We're not seeing it right now in the mass kind of experiment. So many people have taken it that's underway, and certainly not in those numbers.
Yeah, exactly. And my final word of caution would be just that we don't really have enough data yet, because if their sample size is 40-something thousand people and only maybe a few hundred of those were pregnant women, or we don't even really know the full number. Right. Again, that's just not a big enough sample to draw any conclusions. I would certainly urge Pfizer and other vaccine companies to release all of the data that they have without having to, make these FOIA requests to force them to release the data. This is important enough that we should be able to see all of it. These were approved under an emergency use authorization by the FDA, and people have to be able to have access to that so that they can make informed decisions about their health. I actually reached out to Pfizer as well in the aftermath of the Naomi Wolf blog post. They gave me that same statement. I followed up with them actually and asked them if they would be willing to put an expert on the phone with me so that I could try to figure out exactly how many pregnant women they did study and follow, and they did not reply to me. So I don't get money from Pfizer. I'm not a fan of Pfizer. I'm not trying to defend Pfizer. Again, I just want to make sure people have the numbers right.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, you have a lot of credibility on this issue, so that's why we wanted to get you on to reassure people, because I know I saw a lot of freaking out about this data, because that would be really, really, really scary. So good to get to the bottom of that. Thanks so much for joining us, Amber.
Thanks. I appreciate you having me.
And we'll have more Rising right after this.